I think I can start briefly, and then Professor Merton will also, add some thoughts, I think, to it. I was very lucky that when I was invited in 2019 to come and speak at the conference on complementary pensions, that I had the fortune to meet with people from the Brazilian government who were not only in charge of the complementary pension system, but also in charge of the bond issuance at National Treasury. And because they had this very unique skill set, they were immediately able to see how this proposal that we were making could be implemented in Brazil and greatly improve the Brazilian complementary retirement system. And so, what's nice has been that within 3 years, which is a very short period of time in terms of innovation in this space, Brazil has taken our idea, adapted it to your local situation. So, for example, it pays monthly, it is done through Tesouro Direct, it's done in very small amounts so that poor people and uncovered workers can participate. And so, it's going to allow you to build a much better complementary system than maybe had been envisioned 4 or 5 years ago. It's going to be a state of the art system that, as I mentioned earlier, other countries will want to copy and use as a template for themselves. Professor Merton, would you add something to that, please?
Yes, I'd like to expand it to to talk about how do we stimulate academic research in general in Brazil and elsewhere to basically simplify this complex finance for ordinary savers. And I'll start by saying that when I first got engaged in the implementation of retirement system, I mean my papers on life cycle go back a half a century or more. But but when I first got involved in actually designing and implementing retirement systems in different parts of the world, and I came made the fundamental point that the focus, the target, the goal is standard of living. Standard of living is always described as a flow of sustainable income to support it, never as so much wealth, a pot of wealth. You don't say your standard of living is you have accumulated so many reals, whatever. Okay? When I took that to say that's why, if that's the measure, if that's the goal, we're doing the wrong thing because we're measuring everything in terms of how much do you have in your account, which is like a bank account. If you measure the thing wrong, you can't manage it right. So when I said that to begin with, people said, "Yeah, but you're crazy. That could never be done in the real world. That's a nice hypothesis." Well, I can say that today it is being done in the industry throughout. There's an enormous focus now, and it's accelerating on focus on income and retirement in plans outside of you know Social Security and pension plans. And so that happens, and I think that's an inspiration to offer to academics that they can think out of the box, they can get the right ideas or what they believe to be the right ideas, and if they work at it and get a bit lucky, a lot lucky, uh, you can actually impact real world thought. Now, what I would in particular want to influence them on in thinking is to develop a theory of design of financial products, which goes beyond just retirement and services that are based on what the user already knows, rather than the user to have to become uh, financially educated in order to use the product. But that's, I can say this, most financial products are designed in the latter way. They design it around finance things, and then they say, you better get educated on how to use it. And that just makes no sense. And so there's a whole mindset change when you go into design and you start with the idea that it should be built around what the user already knows. The second thing is the recognition that when people are in the younger phases of their life cycle, they're thinking about building their careers, developing families, and so forth. So any system depends on people's interacting, reacting, giving information, reacting to questionnaires, telling them whether they want this in retirement or that, all those things are just not tenable. And the way to solve that is to develop very, very well designed default systems. By that I mean, if people don't do anything, they end up in this default. And that is happening. And the tricks are that you need information to build a good thing. You don't ask the people, you find ways to get the information. So people essentially can see their retirement issue. They don't have to think about it in these early years. It just happens for them now if they want to. And so, that whole element of developing default systems is very important. And the last rule that I want them to, well, it's next to last rule I wanted to give them is that all financial products should be very, very simple for the user. Now, many financial products, like other products, have a certain amount of necessary complexity. You can't get around it. But the complexity belongs with the producer, the provider. They should handle all the complexity. For the user, it should be very simple. And unfortunately, a lot of financial products go the other way. They make it simple for the provider to offer, easy, and put a lot of complexity on the user to use them. So I'm giving you this outline because I think it's much broader than retirement, and we need to stimulate in each of the countries that sort of uh, uh, development and further research. And I think the success and this issue here serve as a wonderful stimulus for inspiring people to do this kind of research in earnest, with the idea that their research is interesting, it's so forth, but that it actually can have impact.